All right, breaking news this morning. Police shot and killed a man in Jeffersonville, Indiana, and Indiana State Police are speaking right now about what happened. Let's listen.
I made some statements that were a little bit disturbing, possibly, and decided that he should call the local police department for a welfare check. Before Jeffersonville Police Department arrived, they actually received a phone call from the suspect involved. In reference to that original phone call, had made some comments about a possible crime, possibly having his phone hacked, and requested police presence. The Jeffersonville Police Department arrived on scene, but were unable to make contact with that subject because he didn't believe there were actually police officers in the hallway. The Jeffersonville Police Department had multiple phone calls back and forth with the subject and through the dispatch center, trying to make contact with him to get an idea of exactly what was going on. He then at one point made comments that he did have a firearm and was possible that somebody was going to get shot. Jeffersonville Police Department continued to try to make contact with him. He would not open the door for officers. Made some comments that the officers believed it was in the best interest to back away from the door to try to de-escalate the situation. Shortly thereafter, 911 call was made from another apartment within the complex, reporting that they heard shots fired from within the complex. At that time, Jeffersonville PD and Indiana State Police units were arriving on scene, staging outside the apartment building, trying to make contact with the suspect, get any type of information and assistance to him as to what was going on. At one point, after the initial phone call of hearing the shots fired from within the apartment, the officers advised that the suspect had shot out the window towards officers themselves that were staged outside the building. At that time, the regional SWAT team was also called to arrive on scene. The regional SWAT team eventually staged in another apartment building of the same complex, but a separate building where they could observe the suspect apartment window. They did make visual contact and saw the suspect had at least one, possibly multiple firearms in his possession. They continued the whole time trying to make contact with him to put the weapons down to come out of the building. Eventually, around 11:30 last night, the suspect did again fire out the window 2 or 3 times out of the apartment building. Another phone call was made for more shots being heard from within the apartment building, and when the suspect pointed the weapon out the window another time, a third possibly time, Jeffersonville or regional SWAT team officer did fire and strike the subject. After some time trying to make contact with the suspect, they were unable to enter into the apartment to confirm right away with the drone. Eventually they were able to breach into the apartment and confirm that the suspect had been struck. He was confirmed dead at that time by medical personnel on the SWAT team. Immediately after that, the apartment building was cleared to make sure that there were no injuries. Nobody else in this incident was struck. There were any injuries whatsoever other than the suspect being struck by the SWAT team member. So it could have been much worse. Multiple rounds were fired from within the apartment. Indiana State Police detectives were called on scene, or still in the middle of the investigation. Our crime scene technicians are on scene. It's going to be a long time before we have all the information, but it does appear that there were at least several shots fired from within the apartment, some within the apartment complex itself. However, nobody was struck. There are shots that did go through some of the apartment walls, so we're very, very fortunate that nobody in those adjacent apartment buildings or apartment rooms were struck. So it's a sad situation, a lot of questions to be answered, and that's what our detectives are attempting to do right now.
It seems to have spanned multiple hours. Can you explain a little bit about why that happened when there was a man?
We were listening to a live press conference there in southern Indiana where police in Jeffersonville shot and killed a man. We're gathering more information. We'll have a live report when we come back.